Fed Chair Jay Powell testified before Congress and basically tanked the markets, Rodney, with his remarks saying, Congress, guys, we kind of need you to keep doing your job a little bit. We had that first big round of stimulus, but we need some more. Otherwise, we could see some real danger ahead. What do you think of that?
Well, he's right. I don't agree with what's been going on in terms of the central bank and everything they've done. The central bank is what has kept the economy where it is. And while that's admirable, it ruins what you would consider to be price discovery and interest rates. What should interest rates be? I don't know. But the market's not allowed to tell you because the Federal Reserve has essentially put not its thumb, but a giant sledgehammer on the scale and said, we're going to have zero interest rates. And they said, don't expect inflation to reach near 2% for at least 2.5 years. Don't expect interest rates to go up until 2024, which is a huge wealth redistribution from savers to borrowers. I mean, it just is what it is. And the biggest borrower, of course, is the United States government, who is given the incredible privilege of borrowing at rock bottom rates. I mean, 0.66% for 10 years. I mean, it's just silly. And so it's all about the Fed and what they're doing. Now, the Fed has been fairly straightforward. And what you're talking about is Jay Powell telling Congress, look, we can only do certain things with monetary policy. What we will not do is lend money to people we don't think will pay us back. Now, this kind of gets down into the weeds of their policy and what they're doing with their Main Street lending program and other things. We don't need to go into that. But just suffice it to say that the Federal Reserve has some loan programs where they make loans available to certain groups, like cities and states, as well as some others, and they buy bonds not just of the government, but of corporations and stuff. But the Fed's really clear. We don't put money out there that we don't expect to get back. That's called an aid program. That's called a grant program. And those are the purview of Congress. And so Congress, if you want people to keep spending money like they did this summer, you'd better step out and start giving them more money. And unless you do, you are risking the economy tanking on your watch.
So it's the job of the federal government to just throw money away that they'll never expect to get back.
Absolutely. And well, you say throw away, but no. That's what a grant is, right? That's what exactly. A benefit is. That's what these unemployment benefits are. That's, name the benefit program, and it's by definition a benefit.
On InformedAmerican.com, Rodney, you wrote about this. Fed Chair Powell to Congress, issue more aid money or risk foreclosure wave. How real of a risk is that we could see people getting kicked out of their homes? Now, there is a moratorium on that, but I don't know what. Thankfully, you and I remain employed, so I don't know all the details of what goes on there. But what can we see? Can we see potentially millions of people getting kicked out of their homes?
Well. He talked about that, and let's walk through it. There's a caveat in here, which is really cool. And so, one, there are millions of people who are not making good on their mortgages right now. They are unemployed. We have almost 30 million people receiving continued unemployment benefits, meaning they've been unemployed for more than a week receiving benefits. And so we have these deferment and forbearance programs, and so people are not paying. Now, the programs will come to an end because they're not paying, which means their landlord or lender is not receiving and cannot, pay their own bills. And so there's no program out there that says we're going to pay your mortgage for you. And so because of that, because there's no pot of money making good on those mortgages instead of the homeowner, those programs are going to be pretty short-lived, probably by the end of the year. And so then those deferral and forbearance programs end. People are going to have to start making their mortgages again. The ones who are unemployed will not do it. So we get to a point where you have this home, you're in it, you own it, you're not making your mortgage, and your lender says, hey, buddy, you got to do something. This sounds and feels like 2009, 2010, but it's not. Back then, we made loans, lovely loans with all those names, and the best one I remember is ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets, no problem. We'll give you a loan anyway, right? And so those people had no equity. Very, very different than today, because today we did conservative lending for the past 10, 12 years, and the housing market is hot. It's very low inventory. And so people may not have a job. They may not be making their mortgage payment, but most everyone has equity in their home, and that's a huge difference. So there were very large companies created out of the last housing bust to buy single-family homes. And I know you live in the Tampa area, and I was there at the time. These companies came through and bought thousands of individual single-family homes, and they became essentially institutional landlords.
Yeah.
And so these companies have spent the summer raising hundreds of millions, and in sometimes the case, billions of dollars for the purpose of buying homes in the next foreclosure wave. But there's a kicker. They're looking at a program where they don't foreclose and force you to move out. If you have equity, you don't need to foreclose. You need to sell. That's a very different thing. And so what they're looking at is going to homeowners with a program and saying, hey, sell me your house. I'll send you a check for the equity, and you become the renter in your own home. And what that does is it allows you to remain in place.
And now, by the way, the rent just went up or something. I don't know.
There are all sorts of issues with it. But imagine what it does. It takes away the pain of the foreclosure, it takes away the stigma of the foreclosure on your credit report. It gives you money in your pocket from the equity payout that you receive, and it takes away that issue of having to move. And so it doesn't clog up the courts, it doesn't screw up the finances, and it allows you to stay in place for the, where you live, where you are looking for a job, where your kids go to school. And so a wave of foreclosures may not be what's coming, but a wave of transfer of ownership may be what's on the horizon.
Well, that's not a good thing. I mean, that you just gave me, there's the bitter pill and then, there's the poison pill and then the bitter pill. At least, I guess if our only choice is the bitter pill, you got to take it. But that's less than ideal as well.
Well, of course it is. My goodness, when the choice is foreclose, have your credit dinged, end up in court and move your kids somewhere you don't want to be, or stay in the house you've lived in and get a check, I think that's a decent deal.
Yeah. Now we're waiting for Congress to do something here, or at least called on by Jay Powell. And there's negotiations that have seemingly gone nowhere as far as I've seen. Where are we at? If and when will there be another round of big stimulus to help out, Rodney?
I don't know the answer to that. So Nancy Pelosi has another recommendation of a $2.4 billion deal, I believe, that she said she would support, that's making the rounds today. The Republicans have said it's really not going to fly, still too much. But I'm certain that what she's fishing for is a deal somewhere between 1.5 and 2.4, still centering around that $2 trillion mark. I might have said billions a minute ago, but it's trillions, obviously. And so that's what they're looking for. I think it's kind of dead in the water. We've seen the economy rebound some. We're at the end of the third quarter next week. We're going to get GDP numbers in 3 or 4 weeks for the third quarter. They're going to look pretty good. But unemployment's going to remain fairly high. And so I don't know that it behooves anyone to move on this deal over the next 6 weeks. And that's what we're looking at ahead of the election. Now, if the election goes for Trump and the Republicans keep the Senate, I think you could see a deal fairly fast. I think that would actually speed something through. But if Trump loses the election and the Senate flips, I think that you're looking at January 21st.
Wow. All right. Well, so nothing before the election then. That's more of your hard prediction, right?
Exactly.
That sounds like that's the case, unfortunately, for all those millions of Americans out of work and could potentially having to give up their homes. It's very, very sad state of affairs.